Alright guys, so if you have two parallel lines and they're cut by a transversal, okay, these are your parallel lines. We'll call those L and M. So L and M are parallel. That's the little the two marks here. That means parallel. We'll call the transversal. We'll call it K. All right. Now, when you have two lines cut by transversal, parallel lines cut by transversal, there's several angle relationships that are formed. Okay, that's what we're going to talk about first. On this sheet here, guys, make sure you understand that you have to give the angle relationship and you got to solve for the missing variable or missing angle. All right, so let's start. We'll start on the outside. All right, guys. So all right. So first thing we'll talk about um, is angle one, angle one and angle two, and angle three and angle four. So angle one is congruent to angle two, and angle three is congruent to angle four. All right, and that relationship is known as an alternate. They're known as alternate exterior angles. Okay, so if you've got two parallel lines cut by a transversal, angles one and angle two will always be congruent. Angles three and angle four will always be congruent. Guys, another if something is congruent, that means they're equal to each other. They're the same size. Okay, same angle measure. All right. So we got those. Now let's go to the inside. All right. Now angle 5 is congruent to angle 6. And angle 7 is congruent to angle 8. So angle 7 is congruent to angle 8. And the reason why that relationship is alternate interior angles. Okay, so those two angle relationships will be called alternate interior. All right, so guys, let's talk about just a minute. Of course, I mean most of this stuff is kind of common sense, but the alternate part. So, guys, this is the interior. That's known as the interior. The outside the parallel lines is known as the exterior. Okay, so if I refer to it as exterior, it means it's outside. If I refer to it as interior, that means inside the parallel lines. All right. Now, alternate means the angles are on opposite sides of the transversal. Guys, a lot of times you can tell, and that's in any field of work or anything, any field of anything really. If you understand what is, if you understand, you break down the meaning of a word or a group of words, it kind of explains to you why, what it does. Okay, all right. Especially like in the trades, a lot of stuff it'll tell you what it does for, and the job it does just by knowing what the name of a part is or whatever. Okay, just by looking at the name up and breaking it down, it tells you pretty much what it does in a system. Okay, now math's no different. Okay, so alternate means if it's alternate, it's always going to be on opposite sides of the transversal. Now, guys, remember K is your transversal. Okay, so if it's alternate, so we know that this means different sides of the transversal, and it means it's exterior, means they're on the outside. Notice 3 and 4, they're opposite sides of the transversal, and they're outside. 1 and 2, outside, opposite sides of the transversal. One's on the right, two's on the left. Okay. All right. Now, let's talk about some corresponding angles. So all right, guys, I know they marked a little different, but angle one is congruent to angle 6. The reason why, guys, notice you can pretty much tell when it's parallel lines transversals if they're going to be equal to each other because the angles are going to be about the same measurement. Guys, you can tell angles 1 and angle 6 is about the same measurement. If you put a protractor there, they'd probably be measuring about the same angle. Okay? Angles 1 and angle 6 are congruent because of the corresponding their corresponding angles. I was about to say angle theorem, but we don't really care about theorems in this class. Okay, so they're congruent to each other. Okay, now talking about corresponding angles. Angles 3 and angle 7 are also congruent because of corresponding angles. Angles 3 is congruent to angle 7. All right. What's another one, guys? What would be another corresponding angle pair? 4 and 8 will be, yes. So if angles 4 is congruent to angle 8 by corresponding angle theorem. Okay. And there's one more. What would be the last one? 5 and 2. Good. So angle 5 is congruent to angle 2. And all those are corresponding. Guys, I've taught math 2 quite a bit. And corresponding angles is usually the ones that people miss the most. Okay. Because they're going to be very similar to the ones we're going to talk about here in a minute. All right. Let's see. All right, now let's talk about the next type of congruent angle, and they're called vertical angles. Okay. Now, vertical angles, guys, means that anytime two lines cross, okay, the angles that are made that are opposite of each other, diagonal across from each other, are always vertical angles. Like these two are vertical angles. Okay. Now, so any angle where when two lines cross, when they're across from each other, they're going to be congruent. So, guys, pretty simple. Angles 1 and 5 are vertical angles. So, angles 1 and angle 5 is congruent. Angle 3 and angle 8 are congruent. Angle 2 It's congruent to angle 6. What's the last one? What's the last vertical angle pair we have? 7 and 4, right? So angles 4 or angle 7, angle 4. Those are all your vertical angle pairs. And guys, really vertical angles is about the only one on here is that are congruent regardless if the lines are parallel or not. Okay? Vertical angles are always congruent, regardless if the angles are parallel. Now guys, what I call this, what I call all these angles to the right, okay? Those are those are all your congruent angle pairs. Okay, all these are always equal to each other. Okay, and guys, it's good to know this stuff for we're getting ready. We're starting a quadrilateral unit. Actually, it's starting today. Um, the module, and then it's also really helpful in trig. Okay, to know this stuff. All right. So, guys, we know congruent pairs are equal. They're always equal to each other. Okay. So, it's an angle equal to an angle. Okay. So, they're always equal to each other. Guys, these are the relationships, and these are the, like I said, these are the angles that are part of the relationship. All right. Now, let's talk about. We'll put these up here. Let's talk about. Now, guys, going way back, what does supplementary mean when it comes to angles? Yes, if you take the two angles, if you take an angle and you add it to another angle, if they're truly supplementary angles, the sum of those angles are 180 degrees. Okay. All right. So that's what that means. All right. Now, let's talk about. There's only really two of those. There's a lot of them on here, but there's only two names for them. Let's talk about. Let's talk about consecutive interior angles. Okay. Now, guys, this is missed a lot. Angles 5 and angle 7. Notice they're consecutive, which means if I leave this angle, the next angle I come to is angle 7. Okay. If I leave angle 8, the first one I come to is angle 6. They're consecutive. It means they're right next to each other. All right. Now, so angles 5. So angle 5 and angle 7 are supplementary pairs. Okay. And the interior part comes because they're on the inside. Consecutive means you just run. If you leave one angle, you just run right into the other. Okay. What's the only other pair of consecutive interiors here? What's the other pair of consecutive interior? 8 and 6. That's the only one. That's the only other pair here. Okay. All right. So this. I sent it to you, Kate. Thank you. All right. So the last thing we're going to talk about, guys, is the last, and it's the last angle and the last supplementary angle we're going to talk about are linear pairs. And guys, they're linear because if you take two angles together, if you take an angle plus an angle, it equals a straight line. All right. But what's the measurement of a straight line? 180. All right. It's 180. Okay. So, and guys, you can name a bunch of linear pairs. Anything, any two angles that sum up that when you add them together, they make a straight line. So there's a ton of them on here. I'm just gonna put a couple of them. Angles 1 and 3, angles 3 and 5, angles 5 and 8, angle 8 and 1. So guys, you can pretty much tell any two angles that make a straight line are going to be a linear pair, and they're always going to be supplementary. Okay. The other ones will be like 7 and 6, 7 and 2, 2 and 4, and 4 and 6. That would be the other angle pairs because they make a straight line. You may also hear them. You don't hear it that much, but you may also hear them called adjacent angles because adjacent means they're side by side, right? Um, so you might be hearing them as referred to as adjacent angles. All right. So guys, that's pretty much all the notes. And guys, the main thing the math on this stuff is really easy. The main thing I want you to get down pat for this unit is the angle relationships because when we start studying parallelograms and quadrilaterals, a lot of this stuff plays into how to find measurements of those parallelograms. Okay. All right. It's not going to work. Okay, guys. So, how many people vaguely remembers doing this? I mean, you remember? I mean, it's you probably done it at least twice. Okay, so all right. So now, what it wants you to do is says it wants you to solve for x and get the relationship. Okay. Now, we're looking at number one. Look at number one. There, one's left and one's right of the transversal. So you know it's alternate, and they're both on the exterior of the parallel lines. So that would be alternate exterior. Okay. Now, guys, remember, alternate exterior is the angles are always congruent, right? So if they're congruent, it's very simple to set the angle measurements equal to each other. Okay? So you get x by itself guys, it used to be I'd have you to plug them back in and find the measurement. It would be a bolted angle, but it's so hard to see which one's bolted. It just got where it's more of a hassle than anything. I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody would know just to plug it back in. 10 times 7 is 70 degrees. If this one's 70, what's the measurement of this one? 70, right? What's the angle relationship with number 5? Well, we know it can't be alternate, right? Because they're on the same side as the transversal. Both of them on the right of the transversal. They're they're not, one's interior, one's exterior, so it's not going to have that. Guys, if you have angles like this, that notice they kind of occupy the same space. The only difference is one's interior, one's exterior, one's interior. Those are going to be your corresponding angles. Okay, that's going to be probably one of the hardest ones to spot. So, guys, looking back at the notes, kind of zoomed in really far. The corresponding angles are congruent, right? So if they're congruent, that means you're just going to set them equal to each other. What about number 7? Are those corresponding angles? What kind of those are not corresponding angles? What angle relationship is that? They're not congruent. Remember, congruent means that they're the same size angle. You can tell this angle is much smaller than this one. Those are actually consecutive interior. Okay, guys, think about it. They're on the same side of transversal, and if you leave one angle, you run right into the other, so they're consecutive. Guys, remember, consecutive is one of those supplementary pairs. So to find those, you're just going to add the angles together, set them equal to 180. Okay. All right. So 15x plus 10 plus 6x plus 2 equals 180. Okay. So that'd be combining our like terms. That'd be 21x plus 12 equals 180. Okay. Subtract 12. The last one is divide. Guys, I may let you guys do the rest because that, I mean, a lot of this is straightforward. If you need help, just let me know. Those are the answers. So number 7 was consecutive interior. The answer is actually okay. So guys, what I'm gonna do real quick, I'm gonna let you finish these. If you need help, let me know. In the meantime, I'm gonna make this. I'm gonna make this an assignment so you can submit it on campus. All right. Uh, Another thing, guys, if you get finished with these, there is quite a few of you that have not finished Module 1 IXLs. Guys, there's some of you not even started on them yet. All right. If you haven't started yet, man, you're behind. All right. You need to get started. If you need help, guys, I'm here to help you. All right. If guys, all the IXLs are going to be open until October 9th, which is the end of the 9 weeks. But if you wait till October 8th, it ain't gonna happen. All right.